Hello, welcome to another Becoming a Modern Man. We are playing Mardu Death Shadow, which was the deck list that was played by Jacob Wilson at the Mythic Championship. And we are running up against Rakdos Goblins, which is a deck that's gained quite a bit of traction since the printing of Modern Horizons. So we're on the play here. This is our opening hand. It's not too bad. We've got a whole lot of ways to lower our life, along with a Death Shadow. And some cantrips as well to dig a little bit deeper, but seems like a decent hand. We're just going to lead off with a Thoughtseize, see what our opponent's up to. Fetch a Godless Shrine off our Arid Mesa. You may notice I'm only running one Godless Shrine, which is definitely a mistake. I realised after I had entered the tournament, but yeah, you should definitely run two Godless Shrines because getting black-white mana is fairly important. So this is our our opponent's opening hand. So they've only got one land, a Skillet Prospector, a Munitions Expert, Goblin Ringleader, Matron, and Chieftain. Definitely taking the Vial here. Obviously the Vial allows them to cast these spells, and it's very easy for them to potentially stumble here on mana. They are going to get a Prospector turn one, but it's no guarantee that they're going to hit their second land, and I think they're pretty much relying on this Vial to stick, so we definitely want to take the Vial here. We'll just drop that in, and let's pass the turn. We could cycle Street Wraith, but I don't see any particular value in doing that now as opposed to later. We know our opponent's a relatively aggressive deck, though certainly the Rakdos Goblins deck is less of an aggro deck than its sort of 8 whack or whatever the sort of previous versions. Gonna cycle here. It's kind of a Fatal Push. Isn't bad. Just going to reduce our life total as much as possible here, basically, before we cast a Death Shadow for 3. We know our opponent's got a Munitions Expert in hand, so we obviously want to be above 2 when we do this. And then we're just going to pass with Fatal Push up. We could have played the Spell Bomb there, but I think we're better off having something to work with. So our opponent does hit their second land. Or they did the previous turn, I guess. And they're going to be able to cast a Warren Instigator here, which is fine. I think we're just going to get rid of that. You don't really want to be holding back and blocking, and I think it's important for us to stay on the front foot here. So we'll kill off the Instigator here. Draw into a Sculler, which isn't too bad. I attack first here, but I don't think that was correct. We're definitely going to be using this Silent Clearing, so we might as well have made our Death Shadow a 4/4 in the process. So Sculler, we get another look at our opponent's hand. So yeah, nothing's changed, I suppose. Yeah, we already knew what our opponent's hand was at this point. So Munitions Expert, Ringleader, Matron, Chieftain, and again, potentially not the mana to cast any of these 3 and 4 drops, unless they sack the Prospector. So I think we're going to take the Munitions Expert here. It's also potentially able to kill the Tidehollow Sculler anyway, so I think that seems like the most logical card to take. And we'll run out this Spell Bomb here. Obviously not the matchup for Spell Bomb to be particularly good. Sometimes a third land and runs out of Chieftain, attacks for 2 with the Prospector. We're going to take it. Obviously that grows our Death Shadow as well. We draw Snow-Covered Plains, which isn't particularly exciting, so just going to cantrip with the Spell Bomb and with the Silent Clearing as well, just to see if we can dig into something a little bit more exciting. Draw Double Inquisition, which is okay, but not terribly exciting. So we can take the Matron out of our opponent's hand. They can potentially Ringleader next turn if they want to, sack the Prospector, or if they draw a land, which could pose a threat to us. Potentially a lot of hasty guys coming at us. But I think we need to stay on offense. Opponent's on 13, so if we attack for 7 here, let's put them down to 6. And they're going to have to start worrying about this Death Shadow killing them. So opponent attacks with Goblin Chieftain. I have to block that. I don't think the Munitions Expert is all that exciting for them at this point in time, and I think we're happy to get rid of a Chieftain that's potentially giving all their dudes haste and pumping them. I think this is a fairly generous trade for us, to be honest. I'm not sure if I was them, I wouldn't have just gone for trying to cast the ringleader and restock, because potentially they can make a fairly big attack over the next few turns. But really happy to take that trade. One plays a War Chief. That's also interesting. Again, they've got the haste, so we do have to be at least slightly scared of that situation. We draw a Thoughtseize, so we can take the ringleader out of our opponent's hand and the munitions expert as well, if we so wish. Just going to leave with attack and see what our opponent does from there. So they jump up with the prospector, which is fine. Just gonna cash in the silent clearing, draw an extra card, find an angler, which is really nice. That gives us a nice blocker. So I'm just gonna take the munitions expert here, produce an angler. We could have Thoughtseize, but I think that puts us at a real risk. I mean, now we've got a 5/5 blocker in the form of Gurmag Angler. I suppose it's less of a risk, but there's still some risk that our opponent can produce a bunch of creatures next turn, which allow them to attack us for 4. So I don't really like going to 4 there, but maybe that would have been the better play. Maybe we should have just got rid of the ringleader. But there are ways in which that might have ended up with us losing the game. So I think it was potentially slightly risky. So your opponent gets Trashmaster and Instigator. 4 cards of this. Yeah. So they get a Trashmaster and a Warren Instigator, which isn't terribly exciting for them. Obviously they're just going to hold back here. Cashing in the silent clearing, which is nice, and we get Team of Battle Rage, which is going to allow us to finish the game here. So we attack. Our opponent is going to just block with the Death Shadow, but Team of Battle Rage allows us to trample over and finish the game here and now. So we pick up the win. I suppose potentially we might have been in trouble the next couple of turns. I don't know. We weren't dead next turn, unless they drew something fairly ridiculous. But obviously Team of Battle Rage pulled that out for us, and we managed to pick up the win there. So let's go to sideboarding. Okay, so here we are with the deck and ready for sideboarding. In terms of sideboarding, cards we want to get rid of. I'd normally say Street Wraith against an aggro deck, but I guess they're not quite as aggro as they used to be. I suppose let's look at the cards we want to bring in. So Plague Engineer is really good in this matchup. Seems like probably one of the biggest things that's holding Rakdos Goblins back is the fact that quite a few decks are running Plague Engineer, and Plague Engineer is a real problem for the Goblins deck. And yeah, very easy sideboard card to run out, and very powerful against their deck. We're running 3 in our deck list, so we are fairly confident we can get them in. So we definitely want all of those coming in. I suppose Celestial Purge, potentially. Liliana of Last Hope isn't bad. It can pick off their smaller guys and get us back some creatures as well. Leyline obviously not particularly relevant. Wear and Tear can destroy Ether Vial, but I don't think that's really where we want to be at. And Fulminator Mage, again, not particularly exciting. In terms of cards we can take out, I suppose we could potentially drop on Thoughtseizes, Street Wraith. Those seem like the cards that we could probably want to take out. Path isn't ideal, but I suppose it's removal, and removal will be handy. But yeah, certainly bringing in the Plague Engineers might make it less necessary. I also like Team of Battle Rage just as a way to sort of win the game out of nowhere. Particularly if they make a big board, then we do want a way to sort of push through that damage. and not just get chump blocked out of the game. So yeah, I wouldn't mind cutting some of the street race just because we don't want to get pushed too low on life, and maybe some of the thought seizes as well, or some combination of the discard package, just because it doesn't seem like it's quite as powerful here as it otherwise might be. Okay, so here we are, game 2. This is our opening hand. Yeah, it seems pretty decent. We've got the Team of Battle Rage under Death Shadow, so as long as we can be speedy, I think that seems like a key to sort of shoring up this matchup and making sure we get ahead. Our opponent fails to find a card after clicking Cracking Bloodstone Mire, which obviously is pretty unfortunate for them. So yeah, they misclicked, and that was a bad start to the game for them. We get to Inquisition to see what they were working with. So they've got Double Munitions Expert, Rakdos Charm, Thoughtseize, Goblin Ringleader. So not really the best of hands in any event. It's kind of difficult to say how this match would have gone had they got their land, but yeah, we're going to take the Thoughtseize so they can't steal our Death Shadow. Although we do have quite a threat-heavy hand as it stands. So playing plays Hovel. See, ideally they would have been casting something at this point. We draw into a Plague Engineer and a Silent Clearing. Plague Engineer very nice here. We get a Tide Hollow Sculler. This time they've drawn into Mog War Marshal. I take the Mog War Marshal, but I think realistically we should have taken, I guess, Ringleader, being the most scary card. The fact is, now we've got Plague Engineer, we can kill all of these guys without really any problem, so I think factoring that in, we should have taken the Ringleader instead, or the Rakdos Charm. But I don't think Rakdos Charm is particularly effective against us. Particularly now that we know that our opponent has it, like we're not going to go to 1 life or whatever. So opponent plays Munitions Expert, which doesn't kill the Scholar. We're going to take the opportunity to play Plague Engineer, kill off our opponent's creature, and leave them with quite a few dead cards in hand. Attack 4, play second Plague Engineer, naming Goblin, and yeah, life's going to be very difficult for our opponent after that. Double Plague Engineer is pretty much guaranteed to kill all of their creatures, I think. I can't really think of anything that would survive that. Maybe Goblin Chain Whirler, I suppose. But yeah, I don't even know if they're necessarily running that card. So yeah, that obviously an unfortunate start for our opponent in their misclick, but I think they were going to be pretty dead to this Double Plague Engineer hand that we ended up managing to form, and that wrapped up this game against Rakdos Goblins.